Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Omar Bowing titled Tyrant, the music video. And if we switch over to here, this video for Tyrant is on YouTube, so without further ado we're gonna listen through this track from start till finish and we're gonna hear what we think. Let's go! Very spooky with the church organs off the bat, right?
Reunited here, strong state nation, to save our home from the tyrants. I and you suffer and work hard.
Sorry to interrupt, I just like the clarity of the steel strings. The voice acting is great. And the choirs and everything else going on orchestrally is fantastic.
No more, no. The savior I've been called.
Bring those drums in slowly.
I promised you to end poverty. My life is for you, a new era of prosperity. You must believe in me, 'cause I see broken lives, I see hypocrisy. Their lives taste like insipid bitter
This kind of sounds like I'm listening to an opera, like or like a theater show or something like that. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. It's well done. Just the drama and tension from the strings, the drum fills there with the snare parts, the ways the singer is expressing themselves vocally with a whole lot of gravitas. Like it's incredibly intense, and it is inspirational little speech he's giving.
has begun. Witches and lycans look for fresh, bright, warm blood. Look at me, standing at the top. Dear power, my love, here's the glory and more fresh blood.
Fantastic call and response there as well. Just at the end of that solo section with a really excellent guitar playing, we had the strings just going, wah, you know, as if to say we aren't divorcing ourselves entirely from the symphonic elements. Nice rebuttal from the strings. Great unison between the vocals and guitars. I'm immortal. Please don't ask me to die. Fantastic unison at that low range with the vocalist.
We'll meet again.
Well, that was a hell of a tune. That's the Tyrant music video. Really, really interesting artwork here. We're gonna go through the rest of it just to see if there's any interesting stuff that occurs. But I think we might just be showing the art for it. Poenari castle footage by Matt Whiting. Music and lyrics by Omar B. Audio mixing by Carlos Velasquez. Orchestral arrangements by Joan Sampaio. Audio mastering by Studio Pros. Coffin stock photo by Koya Geraskinov. Awesome, I think that's the track. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track by Omar Bowing, titled Tyrant. What do I think this track is about? I mean, full disclosure, I've been given a bit of a hint. Apparently, Tyrant is an intellectual protest against political corruption and political tyrants. Lyrics are a speech by the tyrant that is represented by a hybrid human, Vlad the Impaler vampire. All of this without meaning to be disrespectful to Vlad III, as he is the national hero of Romania. Presumably, Bram Stoker came across this with his fictional vampire inspired by Vlad III. Poenari Castle appears in the video. So from what I can tell, basically, as aforementioned, when he was speaking, he was trying to sort of like bring everyone together against the people above them who treated them poorly. Whilst also, trying not to raise too many heckles, they were trying not to piss off anyone who had So basically it's a very inspiring speech about going against corruption of the people and the elite, whilst also identifying the difficulties there, the conflicts of interest with vampirism and stuff like that, and the trophies and blood and everything like that, and being aware that just because he's immortal doesn't mean that they should try and kill him, etc. It's an interesting speech there, but I can understand where they're coming from. It's definitely an interesting thing to write a story about. I think the vocal performance from the guy singing was fantastic. It was very dramatic and theatrical, and it was almost like I was watching someone in a movie sing it, very charismatic. We had ourselves a person who really kind of put themselves fully into the role of this person and tried to sell the words every sort of inflection the best way they could. I think that it worked out. I don't really have any issues with how it was sung. Great head and chest voice there without trying to do too much sort of crazy stuff vocally there. I liked how we used, especially when those parts where we went down into the bass notes there. Da-da-boom. We went right down to meet the bass line, etc. That was great. Very satisfying to hear. And there was dynamic range as well as the vocal performance, which made it seem more like it was a live performance, if that makes sense. It seemed a little bit more sort of organic as opposed to being sort of like it didn't sound fake, if that makes sense. So I think that the vocals sold the story that was being told, and I think that in general that part was good. The song itself at 4 minutes 02, it's actually 3.5 minutes, of course, because it finished to that 3.5 minute part, and it had the art for the single and everything like that. That's well within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. There was a lot going on there, and within the track itself with no filler, and it didn't seem like it was 3.5 minutes. It went through very, very, very quickly, with all the different sort of adjustments made with the guitar parts with the occasional shred bits, the steel string arpeggios at the start, the drums kind of coming in the midway point and being kind of very gentle with their entrance, I suppose, to a certain extent. They didn't just go straight into the eighth note grooves. They started with some sort of snare and tom fill parts and then quickly established groove at the halfway point that kind of led us along the way in a way that was really comfortable, but also anthemic. The bass lines were great and smooth in that low end. The use of the keys and strings and other elements there that we had going on. The use of the church organ at the start of the track was fantastic. It immediately set the mood for that vampirism kind of vibe there, An unholy thing was about to occur, and the strings and synth parts that came in occasionally as we went through the track added an extra sort of bit of suspense to it. Nice sort of mid-range resonance there to work with the rockish elements there with the distorted guitars and stuff and smooth things out and make things a little more so balanced across the tonal spectrum. It was cool how we had some parts where there was the vocal focus, but then we just kind of let the story stop and allow the shred guitar to come in. And we had sort of laughing parts as well with the going around the stereo headphones there and the stereo field kind of surrounding you and kind of overwhelming, or sort of creating a sense of madness or dissonance or something like that, which is kind of dope. I think there was a great overall dynamic range to the performance as well. Everything wasn't the same loudness all the time in the same way that the vocals weren't, and so you had more of it sounded like a live performance, like you were actually there listening to them sing and play, and it was really engaging for a listener. You kind of get sucked into their world. And how we started with the church organs and then the steel string guitars kind of sounded like a lot of the kind of It kind of reminded me of 80s Metallica in certain respects, the big distorted finish with the boom, you know, like the great drama, that I've said drama a lot, just a fantastic conclusion to things, ending on like a really kind of like intense note that allowed for like a great sort of emotional sort of variety within it. You know, we didn't just get one tone throughout. There were lots of different chord progressions and bass lines and little transitions and departures, and we never had too much of the same. There was great variety in the composition arrangement there, which made the track more interesting to listen to. And what helped that was also the fact that when we did go between parts, the transitions were smooth. We didn't just have stutters or stumbles or anything like that. It just felt like a lot of different ideas that were connected by part by the vocals or by the sort of the shred guitar parts or the organs or the strings, etc. Basically, because we had similar additions into the accompaniment in regards to the layering of the parts, even if we had different sort of like chord progressions or ideas before musically and different motifs, they never felt like alien, and it made the experience very, very easy to listen to. And again, we had 3.5 minutes here. There was way more than what we probably deserved within this. So there's and by what I deserve, I mean it could have been very easy to sort of sleep on it and maybe hit like 1 or 2 different bits that you kind of repeated like in traditional sort of contemporary structures. But again, this was honestly like more through composed. It was centered around the speech. Ergo, you know, like you had a situation where you just needed to have it kind of like the listener hanging on by a thread until that last part where he talks about dying and the morbid kind of conclusion to it, you know. It's wonderful. It's a really well written song, and I'm happy with the performance overall. There wasn't a note out of place. There was a connection because of the motif itself. Just before we move on, the theme there sounded somewhat inspirational, but there was also an overbearing sense of dread there. It didn't feel great. Like it sounded like there was like a rise up and kind of get active kind of feel to it, but it was also there was a darkness that you could hear behind it, kind of sinister. As if, you know, you could trust the person, but only so much. You knew that whatever actions you're gonna take were gonna have some pretty raw consequences. So it was an interesting complexity to it that was helped by the complexity of the arrangement and the detail to the vocal performance there, the flexibility there with how it was delivered there, and how much of a good fit it was to the overall vibe. And there was a great connection between the different elements, and I'm really happy with it overall. I mean, like the studio recording, mixing, and mastering was fantastic as well. Great clarity to the vocals as well as the guitar parts, drums, synths, you know, organs, bass, you know, all the different elements that you could easily identify what was going on there. The leveling in general was great. Things were notched well on the frequency spectrum. It was nice and wide in the stereo field, so lots of different elements scattered throughout with little bits of automation of the panning of some of the instruments, like as well as the vocals, like the laughing parts, etc. I think the guitars might have moved around a bit as well in the leads. You know, it was very full sounding. There wasn't a sense of nakedness to it. There was a nice little bit of reverb and delay to keep things kind of nicely glued together. The compression on the master bus wasn't too heavy because it allowed for the dynamic range, and that also allowed it to have some life to it. It was nice low without pumping as well, so the limiting when every stuff was handled adequately. And in general, I'm just really happy to have heard this track by Omar Bowing, titled Tyrant, and hopefully you enjoyed it too. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as you to help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.